Well, I so appreciate the fact that you all came back to be with me again is obviously the greatest compliment a person can get. I mean, you are legit. I am really, I'm going to try to tone it down, but I am equally passionate, if not more so, about the area we're getting ready to go into. And the reason for that is that, you can see me better up here. The reason for it is that I actually think that in the whole planned giving area, in the estate planning area, our inability to really understand what well, let me put it this way. Our inability as estate planning attorneys to understand what we left you all with is a problem. Let me put it clear. We set estate planning up with such misaligned incentives that it really makes the job of plan giving officers so much more difficult than it should be. My view is, and I actually believe all of you are the pinnacle of what we're trying to do, because again, philanthropy is the love of humankind, and so getting money to help human beings be better humans is really the key. And I think that estate planning, the way ACTEC or estate planning attorneys have done it, has not been optimal. But I got good news for you. The good news is that there has been a movement among those estate planning attorneys who think they're kind of elite folks to actually do what we're going to talk about. So what you see isn't just pontification. So what I'd like to do, just to kind of give you a roadmap, I'd like to kind of briefly set out some thoughts. And of course, this is an interactive session. So anytime you just have any comment, any thought, anything you'd like to say or divert or object to, or any question, just kind of like, you don't even have to raise your hand, just look like you want to talk and I'll recognize you, all right? And that'll work. But this is all about the ethics and efficiency of goal-driven wealth transfer. Of course, it sets it up right away, because for most people, they don't have a goal in mind when they do estate planning. Think about it. If I gave you $50,000 and you went out and you bought something with that $50,000, let's make it $500,000, and you go out with $500,000 and you get a painting, what would you do with that painting? And this is actually response. What would you do with a $500,000 painting if you bought it? Insure it. Good point. What else? Hang it up on the wall. Thank you. If I gave you, if you had $500,000 and you paid that and you went out and you got a new house, what would you do with that house? What are some of the things you could do with that house? Live in it. Right? This sounds obvious, but you'll see where I'm going when I get there. So now you pay $50,000 for an estate plan. How do you enjoy your estate plan? Yeah, I'm getting the right reaction. Yeah. I like the smiles. Tell me you're getting it. The smiles tell me you're getting it. How do you enjoy an estate plan? You can't. Trust me. Reading it before you sleep. For insomnia maybe. But die. So I spent $50,000 to get something that now. You see the problem? Death cannot be the goal of estate planning, and yet. We have people who sort of kind of think that. And that's why they don't want to talk to us about it. Because the theory gets to be, well, I don't really want to die. I don't really want to give away my stuff. And I don't want to pay taxes. I don't want to pay an attorney. So that's like the trifecta of what I don't want to do. Okay? So why do it? I believe that what we have to do is we've got to get a goal that's much more effective. Let's just think about how we talk about estate planning. This will show you how I'm beating up on me. This is all about me. How we deceive. We tell people, come in and let's draft a family trust. Now, you all know what a family trust looks like. Is a family trust about family? No, thank you. It's really about the credit shelter bypass amount. We call it a family trust just because we needed another name to offset the marital deduction. Family trust is just a trust that's designed to take advantage of the lifetime exclusion amount is. That's all it is. But we call it family trust because that's what people want to hear. The family trust. Yes, it does have elements of the family. I get it. A marital trust. If somebody told you that this is a marital trust, wouldn't you think the marital trust is about marriage? Thank you. It's not. It's about the marital deduction. And really, the marital trust actually might not get very much money. You know I'm telling the truth. In a marital trust, depending on the formulas, the marital trust might not get much money at all. And by the way, most spouses, when they find out what the marital trust really is about, truth is, they wouldn't want it. Most couples would say, well, we don't split our assets that way. If it's my wife, she says, his is mine, ours is mine, and mine is mine. Yeah, why are you splitting things into two different trusts? That's not how we operate. And by the way, I'm fine with that operation. The reality is, we try to do tax reduction, and you've already heard me beat on the word legacy. And then there's my favorite guy, Warren Buffett. And his famous phrase is this: well, you want to give your kids enough so that they can do anything, but not so much that they do nothing. Let me ask you, how much is that? You see, it doesn't tell you anything. So you say, Ray, what's the point? What do you think is the key thing? This is the word. You only need one word from me that'll unlock this whole presentation. Here's the word: benevolence. Benevolence. And of course, you're saying, Ray, we've always known that word. We've always used that word. That's not a big deal to us. The reason why that word benevolence is the key is because it tracks in to what I've just said here. The real purpose, the real goal of estate planning is defined benefit planning. You define a benefit and then you fund it. That's estate planning. The goal is to fund what you've defined at the right time, at the right place, in the right amount. That's the goal of estate planning. Has nothing to do with death. That's why you can do it. That's why those people should be giving the money now, later. It doesn't matter. Death is irrelevant. I always tell people they're going to wait to die to give money. What is it that makes death so relevant? Why is death relevant? Death's not relevant as a message. But the thing that we want to do is talk about the will's good, the defined benefit to the defined beneficiary. You say, how did you get to benevolence and benefit? It's interesting. And I'll take you on a journey now. Because the first thing that happened is I realized people are not getting what they thought they were getting, right? Here it is. When you get a client to do a will, do they get a will? Yes. But does it express their will? Can you believe that the very word that will is designed to mean doesn't occur in the will? Just think of what I'm saying. Get a will, read the will, and then do it next to the person. And say, okay, it doesn't sound like them. In fact, and that's okay, because you do need some legalese in there. I'm not down on that. But nothing in the typical will sounds like what the person would say except for the names of the beneficiaries. Even more important, the trust is the same way. And the point I'm trying to make here is, shouldn't a will be about their intention? And what my point to you is we ought to be ferreting out the intentions of the people who are talking to us. That's why we want to do that soul spirituality, because we want to actually figure out what they want, where they're going, so we can actually help them get there. And that's not what we did before. And so what would they tell us? What people would actually say, they say, I want to tell you my story. before I hear yours. And I'm making fun of something I'll talk about later. I want advice on how to make an impact. You know, impact gifts. You know why people started talking about impact? Because they realized that that's all you ever do when you do a gift. And I'll get to that point too. I want a goal for wealth transfer. They want their wealth transfer to feel like what happens when they bought that $500,000 painting. Nobody had any problem figuring out what to do with that painting to enjoy the success of buying it. But everybody had a problem figuring out how to enjoy the will and the trust that they paid $50,000 to do. We don't want that. We want something that's different. I don't want people, oh, this is a big one. I don't want people hoping I die in order to get what I have to get. That's why I immediately try to divorce the whole concept of death from giving. So here's the first time I introduced this idea of benevolence. So you say, how did you get here, Ray? This is a long trip. So I was in a room, and some of you heard me say, and let's just pretend that this is a meeting I'm having with a person. Hello, Mrs. McGillicuddy, how are you? Well, Ms. McGillicuddy, can you tell me exactly, you're here for estate planning, and we'd like to do some estate planning. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself? Okay. Did you bring all those documents that you can't find, the ones that you really hate, and did you bring all that stuff that you hated even looking for? Yes, good, thank you. And now, can you tell me, do you have some like loved ones that you want to, give money to loved ones? That's the phrase, loved ones. And that's our euphemistic phrase, because now we never know who that is, right? We don't really know. And so we say loved ones. That was the thing that included loved ones. I said, oh, love, love, love. What is love? So I started thinking about love. And then I remembered, and it's somewhat obvious to some people now, that I'm kind of one of those guys that actually, when he was a kid, was kind of forced to read the Bible. And the version I had, like we read it now, by the way, but the version back then was the King James Version. It has this famous verse that says, faith, hope, and blank, but the greatest of these is blank. But back in the day when I read it, it was faith, hope, and it had this word that started with a C. Does anybody remember what it said? Faith, hope, and charity. Was this guy's way ahead. Great. Yeah, charity. Isn't that a strange word for love? Did you ever think about that? Honey, I so charity you. Is that working for you? It doesn't work. What is it? Why would they translate that word that way? Well, I think it's because they needed a word that didn't mean romantic affection, but had the same power. And this is the word. The word, then I said, okay, so what is the point of love? What's the essence that they're getting at? Because charity means you give something to someone to help them. That's the word. Is there a word that says that's love? And the word is yes, benevolence. And you say, all right. Well, what about love gifts? Does that have any relevance? Do people actually give gifts out of love or what? What's going on? Well, let's just be clear. The first kind of gifts that people give are gifts that are occasion gifts. And notice that an occasion gift is a small gift typified by the occasion. So nobody has to say anything. If you get a birthday gift, it's for your birthday. If you get an anniversary gift, what defines it? Your anniversary. All right? So everybody knows. And by the way, the appropriateness of the gift is determined by the occasion. The occasion determines the appropriateness. But death is not an occasion, okay, for most people. The reality is that you're not looking, so death doesn't tell anybody why you're giving the money. You need a reason, and we don't have one. The idea is that planned gifts to children and charity, why those gifts should be the same standard. You say, why? Because of benevolence. You see, benevolence, this love idea, essentially says this. Bene means what in every Romance language? Bene means good. Yeah, I heard someone say good. Volence, that's volition. Volition. So, good volition. Good. Flip them, and it's to will the good. See, so the real issue is benevolence is just the good. So every gift is planned, and every planned gift is to carry out benevolence. You're willing good. These are gifts that are not occasional gifts. And so what I put down here is that willing good is you're trying to transfer virtue. Virtue's back, though. Virtue is bad. So what you're trying to do is, and you say, Ray, that's too much. I don't buy it. I'm not sure that my people are trying to do that. Do you see why this is a big deal? Let me tell you why. Once you get people to understand that every transfer of wealth that's not an occasion is a transfer of wealth designed to be willing the good if it's going to someone or something that's loved. And remember, we've already hit it. Philanthropy is the love of mankind. So now, do you see? Children and philanthropy, or children and charity, are on the same page. You're not competing with the family about a gift. All you're competing with is to show that the gift to you has a higher good than the gift to the kids. And frankly, I really like my kids. I have 7 of them. And we have all kinds of, and actually, I agree with that statement, that there's a lot better things that my gifts could do. So you say, okay, Ray, where do you go with that? Define the purpose of planned gifts. The purpose is benevolence. Well, one of the things that your people say, you'll hear everyone say about their children, this is big. Well, I just want them to be happy. Anybody heard that? Anybody ever had someone talk to them? Yes, I just want them to be happy. And isn't that a statement that people make about a loved one? Isn't that a statement they'll make? Well, I want them to be happy. Isn't that the goal of love? To transfer something so that person is happy. Here's the ding, ding, ding moment. Here it is. Truth is, they now have a measure for happiness. Happiness isn't what we thought it was. It, like money, is a byproduct of something else. So we're going to talk about happiness. And so from now on, when you're talking to clients who start out saying, well, you know, it's really important for me. I just want my children to be happy, and that's why I'm leaving them the $3 billion. I just want my children to be happy, that's why I'm leaving them the $30 million. Well, I want your children to be happy too. Of course, the follow-up is, that's why I don't want you to leave them that money. But the point of it is on the front end, we have to have some quantification and way to talk about happy. We need a way to talk about it, a way so we don't look like we're just trying to manipulate them into giving us money and hurting their family. So here is a statement by John Gallup. If ever there was somebody who understood what we're talking about here, was John Gallup. He's deceased now, which is interesting, but the Gallup family, you know, any of you who are in estate planning know, they had major league money, right? They're the only people I know of that had so much money, they got Congress to draft a special exception to generation skipping laws so that they wouldn't have to pay a generation skipping tax on the gazillions of dollars they had in their trust, the Gallups. But notice is that he says on the most basic level, the purpose of this trust is to further the pursuit of happiness. But notice what he says. He says, I use the phrase pursuit of happiness in the same way as founding fathers, which means they're not talking about getting more stuff, but they're talking about self-sufficiency. And notice what he says. This is actually in writing. This is a big thing, the use and abuse of incentive trusts. This is a perennial article. Just everybody refers to it. And it says it's giving back to the community. The money in this trust will make things more convenient for my sons, but it cannot make them happy. Oh, if you could get your clients to see that. Oh, if they could just believe what Gallo says. This guy had all the money you can have, pretty much. And he's saying, we can't set up a trust to make the kids happy. So right. What can you do? Well, you see, happily ever after. In fact, you can see I'm on the story thing. What I think we're trying to do is this. People, as we've already said, are kind of on a spiritual journey. And so that spiritual journey human, what they're doing is writing chapters. What they want is they want the last chapter that they write, that last chapter, they want that last chapter in. You know, we all have it. And they lived. That's it. And it's just, it's not, and everybody, it's coded in. That's why every story we want it to end that way. Well, now they have a way to talk about happy. See, happy didn't work for a long time. Martin Seligman, who really wrote a book on happy, his book, that's where we got the yellow smiley face from. That was Martin Seligman talking about happiness. The bottom line is happy doesn't work. It's a byproduct. If you pursue happiness directly, it's like people who do things for money primarily. Are you with me? So if I pursue money directly, it just makes whatever I do like dehumanizing, okay? No matter what it is, you know? Just to kind of illustrate that, you know, if I gave my wife a diamond engagement ring, as we were girlfriends, and I said, hey, honey, you know, here's this diamond ring, and she goes, well, great, this is, oh, it's so beautiful, you should have done it, you shouldn't have done it, you know, this is wonderful. And I say, well, actually, you know, I really didn't want to do it. I got it on sale. You know, I saved money, and it was my duty. And I got this, and I did it because it was just, you know, it was less expensive than the 2-carat. Everything is lost because when I change the motivation to be based on money, it just takes everything out. All that to say, money never works, and the pursuit of happiness directly is a problem. And by the way, again, I've said it a couple times, but it's really a tremendous problem in America. That's the problem with the opioid addiction epidemic, is people are pursuing something directly that you only get indirectly. And when you get it indirectly, somebody tells you, well, here's a shortcut. And you go, well, okay. And the point of it is, let me tell you how positive psychology figured it out and how estate planning did it. Stay tuned. The problem that we have in estate planning is the same problem that they had in medicine. In medicine, do you know what our model was? It was a disease model. And in a disease model, the first thing you got to get is a disease. And that was no problem in the 1800s, 1700s, you know, stuff. We had smallpox, tuberculosis, diphtheria, I mean, a thousand things, not a thousand, but a lot of things that had diseases to it. So medicine became finding the Salk vaccine, finding things that cured the diseases. And that worked good because just about everybody was subject to the diseases. But then it worked too good because people stopped getting diseases. Now you had a medicine model that said our principal thing is to get rid of disease. Now what are we doing? Because you see, now we have 80% of the population that's healthy. So then someone came up with this word for medicine, and now they call it health care. Of course, the question you have to ask is, do they really care about your health? Well, the point of it is healthcare was an attempt to change. Well, psychologists, and someone would say they didn't do this, but I'm going to say they did. What they did is they said, look, we need to get some credibility too. And so why don't we kind of follow the model of medicine? We'll consider ourselves a bit like doctors, medical doctors. And so what we're going to do is we're going to be disease-based. And so what we're going to do is we're going to find a book, we're going to put diseases in it, and we're going to find 35 different mental diseases. Schizophrenia, bipolar, all these diseases. And then we're going to treat them. And that's how we'll do our... But then someone said, yeah, but on a good day, that's still only 5 to 10% of the population. It's not that many. But I'm just going to give them the benefit of the doubt. What about the other 90%? Same problem they had in medicine. What about the other? We can't keep marketing to the 10% of people who have tuberculosis. No one's getting it anymore. How do we keep ourselves going? I said, the other 90%, why don't we work on health? Why don't we work on happiness? Because what people really want is to live well living. And so they created positive psychology. Positive psychology is the study of what it takes to be well, to have well-being. It's the 95, it's what all of us want. Not just the people who are sick getting healed, but all of us. And you see, estate planning has to go through that same transition. What we did in estate planning, and maybe in planned giving, is we worked on the problem. The problem is you're dying, you got a tax problem, you got this problem. That's not working because that's still only the 3%. Now it's less than 1/2 of 1%. That's not going to work. We need to go with the other 99.5%. The other 99.5% are looking for a similar goal. They're looking to do well. And that's the point. Positive wealth transfer to fund happiness is similar to the 20th century estate planning to avoid taxes. So the old model was disease. That's the 20th century. The new model is PERMA. You're saying, oh my goodness, what is PERMA? PERMA is the new way you're going to quantify happiness for your clients. You're never going to let them talk about, I want my kids to be happy. Because happy, that's a byproduct of PERMA. PERMA is what Martin Seligman discovered is what people are really after when they say they want to be happy. And you can't get it directly, but these factors will tell you that you're close. P, part of it is positive emotion. So he says, look, I'm not discounting the fact that you feel something when you have well life. And that feeling, that it's really a view. P stands for positive emotions, positive effect, and this is principally genetic. This is the only part of this equation that they just couldn't explain, except that there are just some people who are just more optimistic than others. The one thing that he did quickly to show you how it worked was he did looked at baseball cards. He looked at baseball cards of people who played baseball in the 50s, 40s, 30s, as long as they could, far back as they could go. And they looked simply at the baseball card to see whether they were smiling or whether they were just flat or frowning or whatever. And they looked at the ones where the people were really smiling, and they followed those people's life. And sure enough, they lived a statistically much longer life than people who didn't have smiles. Interesting. That's just a short example of what they did. But what they said is having a positive attitude, a positive effect, is part of what makes people, and good. All I'm saying is, when you know that, you can tell those people with kids, well, if he's a really negative person, I don't know that giving him more money is going to change that genetic. But then the E part, engagement. This is a part you all get. Engagement is the flow. It's the thing that I'm kind of trying to do now is flowing into the whole idea that you enjoy something so much you forget that you're doing it for work. You just enjoy it. Engagement. Engagement is full absorption into an activity. Every one of you know that is what makes us as human beings really happy. But you don't pursue happy, you pursue the activity. Playing that violin, running that race, just sitting there and studying. There's that engagement. They wrote the book, Flow. It's key. And then R, relationships. Having strong, meaningful, substantive, nurturing relationships is absolutely essential. You're not going to be happy if your relationships are in shambles and they're draining energy out of you. All people who are living well have good relationships. And then M, meaning. You've got to have a transcendent meaning in your life. If you don't have any purpose, any idea why you are, if you can't answer any of the why questions, you are not going to have as a byproduct happiness. And then finally, A. And this is the one that we all think about because we are an A country. We're all about accomplishment, success, and that is important, and that is controllable, and that is something people have to have. You must have and develop a competency, and that competency has to give you some level of accomplishment, or else you're not going to be happy. That is a well-lived life. PERMA. So we don't have to guess anymore about what it means to live happily ever after. It means to have PERMA. And they've got all kind of studies now that tell us about happiness. And that's the studies I was mentioning when I talked about America not being nearly as happy as they used to be. Well, here we are. This is the point that I really want to get to in terms of showing you what it means to do your job, because this is just delicious. What you're going to do with everybody, no matter who they are, you're going to take them. It doesn't matter whether they have $10 or $10 billion. This is what they're after. They are after the good. Is the goal that defines an effective legacy. Benevolence is the process of creating good. That's what everyone wants. The goal of all wealth transfer by a human being is to create or extend good. That's the whole idea of benevolence. And to show you how baked into our vocabulary it is, notice my words. The first one is, oh, by the way, you're saying, but Ray, how'd you get this? I mean, this sounds kind of, this whole benevolence thing, how'd you? All right, let me do it. I've done this experiment before. It'll just get you up and make sure you move around. I'm going to ask you a legal question. The legal question is designed to get a response. So you're going to stand up one part or the other, okay? You're all going to be standing eventually. And I'm going to ask you this question, and it's designed to show you the point I'm making here. So there's a point to all this. Here's the legal question. All of you who have a legal living heir right now, a legal living H-E-I-R, right now, it's a legal question. If you have a legal living heir right now, I want you to stand up. Thank you. You can be seated. If you don't have a living legal heir right now, I want you to stand up. You're smiling, so you must have the answer. Go ahead and tell it.
I don't have the answer.
Okay. You're smiling so good. I thought the answer is, by the way, stand up. The second group, stand up. Keep standing. These people got it right. They all have it right. That's the answer. Because you cannot have an heir if you are alive. Only dead people have heirs. Only dead. You cannot have an heir. Just think about it. If somebody says, oh, he's your heir. He's not my heir. Nobody knows who my heir is until I'm dead. It's a status thing. You have to be dead. One more time, you have to be dead. What you have is, you can have a presumptive heir, but that's useless. You know, what's a presumptive? But you say, Ray, why did you take us through that? Because it shows how embedded the concept that there's somebody out there entitled to your money. Listen, plan-giving officers, it says that in the minds of the people you're talking to, they have a vision that their money belongs to someone it doesn't belong to, except in one place. Does anybody know the place in the United States where there really are heirs and they would have all stood up? One place. Yeah, Louisiana. Yeah, they're so strange down there. But they're under French civil law, right? Right? Help me out. They under French civil law there. It's, remember in law school we always had to have the exception for them. And you know what's funny? You won't believe this, but this maybe will help you. This will be a little takeaway for you if you didn't get anything else. If you are in Louisiana and you get $1 million gift from someone who has $3 million and 3 children, do you know that unless they do a will that sets up things properly, let's say they do a will, and they give you the money, and they go, hey, we're done. Not only is that gift invalid, if you gave that $1 million during life, you know what they do in Louisiana? They have a process for this. Oh, I forgot the word. I should have remembered, but I forgot I was going to talk about it today. It's a process. You have to give it back. Good. I've got a couple of shocked looks. Good. Do you see the difference between a real heir and what we have in the rest of the country? Are you getting it? In a real heir situation, you've got to put that money back. Because unless you had the magic language, and it's hard language, in your will, that heir was entitled to the money that you gave away. And by the way, this is the system that's in place in all forced heirship statutes in Europe, a lot of them in Europe and Greece. You can't give away money like we give. We operate here in America under an amazing privilege. Nowhere in the history of humankind have there been a people with such dispositive flexibility and freedom as the United States of America. Trust me on this. And your clients need to know that so they can not give money to the heir that doesn't have an entitlement. Do you see why that's such a big deal now? I beat this way too long. But the point of it is, you don't have an heir, but there is something that you have. Every one of you has this person. If you have a trust, and the trust has people in it, or has a trust, what is the name of the group of individuals that are favored and get money in a trust? What do we call those people? What do we call the people that you put on your insurance policy, the name, when we write the name in? Beneficiary. What do you call the people? All of us have beneficiaries, and here it is. You're saying, Ray, you took way too long to make this point, but here it is. Beneficiary, what's the root word of beneficiary? Benefit. And of course, what am I telling you? The whole process that we are engaged with our clients in doing, the process is called benevolence. You see why I'm right? Maybe I'm not right, but at least it's a suggestion. Right? The thing is, benefit, and so you see how fundamental benevolence is to this whole thing. Now you're going to see it. Now I can go back to the slide and see it. The word. Remember, Benny and whatever. Good. It means good in every language. Look at it. Benevolence, good intentions, goodwill, to the intention to give something good to create a good result. That's it. Forget what Warren Buffett said. The idea is to create good. And if that's not happening by giving it to your kids because they're going to spend it on something else, look at the word benefit now with that new understanding. It means good fit. You have to have a good fit. It requires for the good. Benefactor, good factor, the person transferring the good. And then beneficiary, good for life. That's what our process is. You see how that's so much different? It's so much different than saying, oh, well, how much do you want to give to your kids? And then this gets rid of the heirs. It gets, well, I want to treat my kids equally. The goal is not equal. One more time. You've got to find in a way to articulate this to your clients. The goal isn't equal division. The goal is benevolence. It's to will good. Would you do you want to divide equally if your kids are going to use that on opioids? By the way, I keep saying opioids, but it is so real. We have beneficiaries of trust that die because they got distributions from a trust. You need to go through that once, and you would be saying the same thing I'm saying. It is amazing the things you can do that used to be just getting a little alcoholic or addict, but no, it's bad. So beneficiary, good for life. Well, with that, let's stop and some comments, questions. I've been talking a long time. Does any of that resonate with you? The idea of having beneficiaries, people who are involved with it. Do you find that people are pushing back against the concept of giving money, moving money away from their kids? When you sit down with clients and prospects, do you feel like it's family against charity? Do you have that sense? All right. Yes.
I actually find that it's more not family versus. Sorry, in my experience, it's more about their future and the security of their future versus giving than their family versus giving.
Very good. Great point. Great point. One of the things, let me just reply to that. One of the things that I think is a really good point, and I'm going to say this in a little bit bad way because I'm in one of the industries, but one of the things that PERMA does is it actually defines us too. And one of the things I believe has happened to the point about people's security, when I want to make people create wealth to stockpile it for a future day, and I make money off their storing that money, what is my bend? Well, I think the bend of the local banker who wants to set up an IRA is to make you want to store more money than give more money. The truth is, the way I would really respond to that is to use studies of well-being on PERMA that literally show that with a cup of coffee, if you really want to have a good life and feel good about your life, it actually is better to give than to keep it. It just is. And so that's my response, is that benevolence actually does apply to people who are trying to make a choice between themselves and not. Now, obviously, there's a lot of scary statistics out there about Social Security not being enough and other things not being enough. But I think all I would say is, when I look out there, I think there's a lot of people who are getting paid to solicit people to store money so they can charge for it. I'm just saying. All right? All right. Well, let me go on by talking about 4 groups of people. And unfortunately, I'm in this group 3 times. Actually, maybe 4. So there's 4. You say, well, Ray, if what you just said is true, then why don't people get it? Why is there a problem? And the problem is there's 4 groups of people who miss what I just said. And why do they miss it? Well, estate planning professionals like attorneys, we miss it because we got the avoidance mantra. Remember, I always talked about the avoidance mantra. Avoid, 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 avoid. But where are we going? Do you know what defined benefit planning It's getting somewhere, but we don't get anywhere because we're trying to avoid. And then there's the investment management professionals. We tell people it's all about assets. It's about asset valuation. It's about asset identification. It's about asset allocation. It's about asset location. But we never say one thing about assets that would show them what we really care about, to this point made earlier. We don't talk to them about asset destination. Asset destination. You know what my question to clients is when I see a business or something that's illiquid that they want to talk about? I said, where will that be in 50 years, 100 years? I don't ask, are they going to die? I don't care. That's not relevant. Where is this asset 20 years from now, 5 years, 10 years? What is it doing when it gets to where it's going? I once had a lady run up to me after a presentation. She goes, yes, I get that, the asset destination. Well, we're going to give some money to my nephew, but he has a little bit of a gambling problem. So does this work for him? I go, oh, it works perfectly. She goes, well, what do you mean? I said, well, you see, you can know that your asset definition, if you actually look at it, you can see it from here. It's the Hard Rock Cafe Casino right down the street. That's your destination. No, it's not your nephew. That's not where it winds up. Where it winds up is there. That's where it winds up and actually stays for the good of the Hard Rock Cafe Casino. That's the question you want to ask yourself. Now, do you want to support the Hard Rock Cafe Casino? If you do, then you're given right, because giving it to him will support them. And you could just see the light went on. Oh, I get it. It's about where the money. And if that's what you want to do, don't, because what people give money and they just don't want to think far enough, and you've got to make them think. And the financial professionals, we won't help you. Because as was already said again, the idea is we want people to stockpile their wealth so we can charge a fee, just saying. So then financial planning professionals, we don't want stockpiling. Us CFPs, we're about cash flow. And so we want a cash flow that says that there's enough. And so that's another big thing. And that's a big thing. And by the way, to the point again, you want to start with making sure people feel that they have enough. But the goal of it is enough is always relevant. It's an emotional number. Trust me, I've talked to people who literally would live off virtually nothing. They're old-fashioned Depression-era people. And their problem isn't that they want too much. They don't want enough. So everybody has an emotional number. Until you've got that number, you don't have it. And I also talked to a guy, the only time I ever got fired and thrown out of a meeting was a guy who had $10 million, was acquiring more money. This is $10 million back in the 1990s. $10 million, he was acquiring more. His income was creating a checking account that had $300,000-400,000 in it. They had bought everything. Everything was paid off. He had no debt. And I was trying to tell him at that time that he was going to have an estate tax problem. Maybe he should think about charity. And he threw me out of the room. I fired myself. He looked at me and said, Mister, I can never have enough money. I got that email. I just quietly said, I think it's probably time for me to probably leave this meeting. You all take, because I was just coming in as the hired expert. But what I didn't do is I didn't check his emotion. For some people, 10 million is not enough. For others, $10 is too much. Plan giving professionals, I'm going to make fun of you just a little bit now. Here's what you do. Plan giving professionals go in, and we go, hello, I'm Ray Odom from Ohio State. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about Ohio State. How did you first come in contact with Ohio State? You know what that sounds like? Hello, my name is Ray. I'd like to talk a little bit about me, and then I'd like you to talk a little bit about me. Isn't that what we just said? I'm talking about me, you talk about me, let's just talk about it. And who's missing in that equation? Yeah, them. Think about it. Think about it. So you say, but Ray, let's talk about these. Well, I've got 4 classes of people that have a lot of money. And why don't they get it? Well, think about it. Elderly middle class, I call them the middle class millionaires. You know why they don't get this benevolence concept? Because they have had one word in all their life. Their word is save. The word that has made them someone you can talk to and get a wonderful amount of money from is because they just don't have any concept of not doing what has made them what they are. You with me? Their whole life, they've done 70 years, 80 years of saving money to have enough. Of course, you want to say, it's like sometime I have my mom's 90 years old, 93, and she's eating some stuff, that wasn't so good. Somebody said, hey, Mom, that's not good for your health, 93, she won the bet. What? 93, whatever wasn't good, it's already factored in. Go ahead and enjoy it. Have another bite of ice cream. The reality is that the elderly middle-class millionaires, their best thinking is accumulate wealth, and you've got to stop and show them, no, you want to think about benevolence now. The goal has to be, because you want to show them they can have a new goal and they can take a new journey and they can enter that whole new world. Well, inherited wealth beneficiary. What about him? Well, they missed the message, because anybody who's inheriting money now is getting it from a group of people that was called by the silent generation. And what does the silent generation tell their heirs about their wealth? Nothing. That's why they call it silent generation. So you got all these people out there that inherited wealth, and they got no message, and now they want to give their money with no message, and they don't even want to talk to you about their wealth, because that's what they thought you're supposed to do, is not talk about it. And so now their best habit is don't make waves, don't talk about it. You got to tell them that habit's not good enough, because we got some things that your money could do if you would just pay attention, it would work. And then finally, you got the entrepreneur who's asset rich, but he's cash poor. And what's their thing? Well, she has been great at building that company. And that company, for her, really has become like a child that doesn't die and that doesn't do a lot of bad things. And maybe for him, that thing is something that really he controls. And by controlling it, the truth is that's their best habit. And that's why it's going to be a problem. And of course, more than control, they hate the IRS. This is the only people who show up at 7 o'clock for a talk on taxes. Because taxes kill their baby, all right? But that's why they show up. But you've got to get them to see that there's something else involved. They still have a benevolence. And finally, the employers, and this is the worst one. Because most of the people we talk to are employees, and what's the big thing? They used to say at Smith Barney, we don't just do money, we earn it. And that's the whole point, is they've been doing earning, and you've got to tell them about a process that doesn't do earning. So there you have it. And so what I think the process should be, and this is Russell James, he had this little thing where inside the mind, you guys all know this, you've read this book, and he says, what do you see? These little spots are actually what happens when you get someone to visualize the last chapter of their book. He actually did MRI studies. He asked people a question, hey, how do you feel about the word legacy? Not much activity. How do you feel about taxes? Not much activity. How do you feel about this? Not much activity. But when he said, how do you feel about the future where you are going to make the difference that you want? When he made them write their stories and make their story include the good in the future, when he actually made them have what he didn't say, but I'm telling you, is benevolence, the people lit up. And these areas that lit up were the areas where, number one, I've talked about it before, these are the areas of emotion. 2, they are the areas connected with well-being. And here's the coolest part. It is the area connected with decision-making. Autobiographical projection of yourself into the future doing good lights it up. And so what you have to do, the whole goal, is to get these visualized values lighting up the mind through an extrapolated story that really touches their soul. Those stories have to be personal, relational, social, spiritual. We've got them all. That's what I've been talking about. And then you want to implement those intentions with a story. You want to write the next chapter, and then you want to measure it. Here's my defined benefit planning. Then when you get the story, all you have to do is say, here's your story. Now tell me, where are you in that story? I said, well, I'm at this point. And of course, by definition, you're in the room. That would make you part of the story. And now all you have to do is get them to define a good. So what I do is I start with talking about their children. Okay, I'm going to give Junior $1 million. I'm going to give Junior $200,000. Okay, great. What exactly is going to happen when you give Junior $200,000? Well, I don't know, but, Junior's a good guy, and everything's been great, and, that's it. I said, well, wait a minute, hold on. So you don't know what Junior's going to do with it? You don't have any idea? No, but I just trust Junior. I said, okay, let me ask you this. If you trust Junior so much, how come you haven't given him the $200,000 now? Well, I mean, well, I don't really need it, do I? No, you don't. Well, I guess I don't really trust you. Or what they would really say is, well, this is the real truth. I don't want to give it to Junior yet because I'm not sure Junior's going to do it well, but I don't want to be here. Actually, the person is living on that river in Egypt again. They're in denial about the thing. What they're doing is they can't really define the benefit. And so because they can't define the benefit and no one presses them on it, they just do it. This is what estate planning attorneys do when they want to tie up money that should go to you, and we want to tie it up for like 100 years. You know what we use? That's right. It's called generation skipping planning. Yes, we tell them, oh, true, your kids would waste the money. Sure, your kids are now 60 years old and 50 years old and 40 years old, and you're still talking about what they're going to be? Hello. The reality is let's talk about your grandchildren who came late because they got married late and now they just had kids, and you're 80 with grandchildren that are like 3 and 4. Now you can pretend somehow that they're going to be all the things that you're afraid to give money for your children for, and let's leave all the money to them, because somehow life is different for them than it would be for your children, and you don't have to feel guilty that they don't know what to do with the money. Just set up this generation skipping trust. Doesn't that seem right? And by default they say yes, that seems great, because what they've done is they've just done the avoidance we talked about. They just avoided the whole issue. They don't know what their grandkids are going to do, and I forced that issue. I said, exactly on Tuesday, what is little Johnny at the age of 27 going to do with that $100,000 distribution? Well, he's going to go to school. Oh, you already paid for school. Yeah, that's what I already paid. Well, he's going to maybe use it for a house. Well, then just put house in. Why just put $200,000? Well, he already has a job. Well, pretty soon, you see what I'm saying? See what I'm doing? I'm forcing them, and I'm good with it. It's just benefit planning. Show me the benefit. Let's figure out how much money is needed for the benefit. Let's give it to them. If they need $10 million, then give them $10 million. It's better than giving it to us. But if they don't need $10 million, why are you giving it to them? If they don't need $100,000, and here's the interesting thing. Think about it this way. Just think about it in 3 groups. The first 3 groups are this: people who are doing well, people who are doing really bad. Okay, just 2 groups. For the people who are doing really good, do they need more money? No. They're doing fine. Money's not going to help them. The people who are doing really bad, most of the time, money isn't the problem. But if you can define how money helps them, and sometimes it does, then you want to fund that. But you want to define it. Well, it's a special needs trust. It's funded so they can have, yes, makes sense. It's a trust. But don't just do default planning. And remember this then with vigor. V, visualize values, implemented intention, measured methods, and then you do it with vigor. Being celebrated versus equal division. I tell people, you don't want to just be, legacy people say this, well, do you want to be, what is it? They say, you die, you want to be remembered. Do you want to be remembered? That's good. You should use that. Do you want to be remembered? But I don't think that's good enough. I want to be missed. I don't want to be remembered. I want to be missed. No. I don't want to be just remembered and missed. Actually, I want to be celebrated. To have a celebrated life, you need to be more than equal division. And so the big questions are these. What actual role does wealth play in your life? This is the one I get people on all the time. Why don't you want to give away the excess money now? What good will the wealth do in the life of the recipients? Does the wealth that you have now further your reasons? You save the money. Is giving it away helping? How much would it disappoint you if the transferred wealth was detrimental to the benefit? One of the things I let people know is if you can't tell me what the benefit to the beneficiary is, that makes them not a beneficiary. I have a word for it. You can write it down. You can steal it. You don't even have to give me credit. It makes them a detrimentary. Yeah. If they're not a beneficiary, because you can't define the benefit, they are a detrimentary. And here's the big news, the ding, ding, ding news. The ding, ding, ding news is if you can't define the benefit, Ray Odom works for a company who does probably could make a claim that we do more wealth, inter-family, intergenerational wealth transfers than any organization around, any single organization around. I'm telling you that unless you defined it, it's a detriment. There is no neutrality with money. In fact, if people set up a trust with money in it and they tell the kids it's supposed to come out over these kind of ordered ways, it's a detriment. Because what they immediately do is they immediately begin, instead of living life and continuing on that little journey that they're on to be more human, they suddenly look back at this trust and say, my goal is to get that money out of the trust. And I begin to do things that game the system to get to that money, because they think that money is their money and someone's holding it from them. Not a good system. The truth is, I'm going to say this to you, and they would ban me from trusts and estates if they heard me say it. Trusts, generally, are not a good idea if it's done for the purpose of withholding money from a beneficiary. Withholding money from, I'm telling you why it's not a good idea. They think it's their money, and they're just going to game the system. You don't think it is? Go in and Google trust litigation. Google trust litigation. Google the new things that's happening, decanting, reformation, modification. The bottom line, and this is just not me saying it, attorneys all over the country, if you listen to them, they'll tell you, when you set up a trust for the purpose of keeping money away from a child who you think is a spendthrift, what it does is divert the child to trying to get that money because you didn't trust him. You actually sent a message you didn't mean to send. And that message just reverberates while that child continues to try to figure out ways. So it's the opposite of what you wanted to do. You're much better off with a story that tells the child what you were trying to do, starting that funding during life, and then setting some parameters that give trustees and other people the right to continue that. And that's why I say, how much would it hurt you if the money was wasted? And of course, they'll always say they're not going to waste the money. And when I tell people, and you can use this, you've heard me probably, some of you say it before, the worst thing that happens with a beneficiary is not that they waste money. It's that what they do with that money, they actually are worse off. How? Because when people get an infusion of money in 1 year, you know what they call it? Income. Because it come in. The problem is, it come in this year, but it ain't coming in next year. And we don't have, most of us do not have a button that says, it came in once, but it's not coming again. So we ratchet up our lifestyles, and that ratcheted up lifestyle with that new house that now has taxes of $250,000, you can't sustain that house. That house with $15,000 of taxes. Oh, the house is paid for, but you can't afford the maintenance. You see, it is not true that as long as it won't hurt them to give them money. It's wrong. It does hurt them. You literally put them in a lifestyle that may put them in bondage to the very things you thought you were freeing them from. This is my personal experience and the experience of many Northern Trust people. And we can help you when you're talking to people who don't believe that. But the reality is, if you can define the benefit, those things are less likely to happen. And then finally, I make them articulate the good. Here's the whole point. Legacy success is about going from being just remembered to being celebrated. And what you want to do is you want to get them into the center here, providing the maximum good from the defined benefit to the maximum beneficiaries for the maximum amount of time. And now, of course, this is the end, and you say, well, what's the secret sauce, Ray? What's the secret sauce? The secret sauce is the harder you work with your clients to get them to define the benefit that the story of their life gives them, the more that person will be predisposed to come to you, because you are the answer that they're waiting to ask. You're the answer for the question that they haven't asked yet. But you've got to get them to ask the question. Here's the question. Well, Nikki, if my kids really don't, there's no good that's going to come from my kids getting this money, and I never really did meet my nieces and nephews, I don't really know what good it would do them. Nikki, what am I going to do with this money? And of course, that's the point you go, I thought you'd never ask. Yeah, no, there's a good to be done, and that good is with our organization. I can define it for you, and all of a sudden, now you see why all the things that your organization does is so cool, because now you're putting that with all the other opportunities and situations that that person has that they can do. And by the way, with a number of people who don't have children now, it's a lot of times you're just competing against somebody who's really thinking about leaving it to nephews and nieces. So, I think my time is up.
For now.
Yes. And, by the way, on our next session, what we're going to do, if any of you are back, is I'm actually going to have you write a story, because the whole key to this is that you help your clients literally write their story. If you got my materials, I actually have a statement of wealth transfer intent that's written out. I will literally show you how to do that by actually having you write your story, and then I'm going to have people in the room try to get that story from you by asking you questions about it. And then we'll compare to see how well we do. So you'll know your story, and you'll know how the person interviewing you does to get to that. Because that's the trick to making this work for you. Thanks.